Marcus Johnson had never imagined his world could collapse in a single night. The rain came down in sheets as he stood outside what used to be his home, the cold soaking through his jacket and into his bones. The house, his house, glowed warmly behind locked doors, laughter drifting out as if mocking him. He could see Vanessa's silhouette in the kitchen window, wineglass in hand, her curves outlined by soft light. There was another figure beside her, a man, tall and broad, whose hand rested possessively on her hip. Marcus's heart thudded painfully. That was his spot, his house, his woman, but no more. The papers he held in his hand were already ruined by the rain, useless now. The signature at the bottom, his own, was a testament to his stupidity. He'd signed over power of attorney to Vanessa 3 months ago, trusting her when she said it was just to help with the business paperwork. He had no idea she would clean out his accounts, sell his shares in the company he'd spent 10 years building, and take out a second mortgage on the house, all in his name. The betrayal burned hotter than the cold. His phone buzzed in his pocket. His mother, again. "Marcus, where are you? Are you okay? The bank just called about the house." He couldn't answer, not yet. His pride wouldn't let him tell her he had failed them all, that her son, the smart one, the successful one, was now broke, homeless, and utterly alone. When he didn't respond, the voicemail beeped. "Baby, come home," her voice cracked. "We'll figure this out, together." But there was no together anymore, not after Vanessa, not after his father's hospital bills, not after the bankruptcy papers waiting in his inbox. A car pulled up in the driveway, a sleek black Mercedes. The man from the window stepped out, muscular, tailored suit, Rolex flashing as he handed Vanessa a kiss that Marcus's stomach churned. "Is that him?" the man asked. Vanessa glanced outside, her eyes locking onto Marcus through the rain-streaked glass. She smirked. "Yeah, that's the ex." The ex. Just like that, his entire existence was reduced to a footnote in her story. "You should leave," the man said to Marcus, voice like gravel. "You're embarrassing yourself." Marcus clenched his fists, every muscle in his body screaming for a fight, but he didn't move. Vanessa opened the door and stepped out under the awning, her stilettos clicking on the wet concrete. She was beautiful. God, she was always beautiful. But now he saw the sharpness in her smile, the predator beneath the charm. "You're still here?" she asked sweetly. "Marcus, it's over. You're over. Why don't you just disappear gracefully?" The words sliced deeper than any blade. "I loved you," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "I gave you everything." Vanessa's laugh was cold. "Exactly. You gave me everything, and I took it. That's the game, baby. You should have known the rules." The man stepped closer, cracking his knuckles. "You're not welcome here. Go." Marcus felt his throat tighten, tears threatening to spill, but he refused to let them see him break. Not here, not now. Without another word, he turned and walked away, the rain pounding on his shoulders like judgment from above. Hours later, Marcus sat in his car in a Walmart parking lot. The engine was off, he had nowhere to go, no one to call. The scent of stale fast food filled the air. He stared at the gun on the passenger seat, a .38 revolver he hadn't touched in years. For a long moment, he considered it. But then his phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from his mother. "You're stronger than this. Don't let them win." Something shifted in Marcus. Slowly he reached for the gun and locked it in the glove compartment. Not tonight. If Vanessa wanted war, she'll get it, but not like this. He would rise, he would rebuild, and when he came back, he wouldn't just take his life back. He'd take everything. Marcus spent the night in his car, the seat reclined, eyes fixed on the cracked ceiling of the parking garage. Sleep never came. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Vanessa's smirk, heard the mocking tone in her voice. "You're over. Why don't you just disappear gracefully?" The words gnawed at him, turned in his gut like a blade. By dawn, his phone buzzed again. Another call from his mother. He ignored it, tossing the phone onto the passenger seat. He couldn't face her, not yet. Instead, he started the car and drove aimlessly, winding through the city streets until he ended up at the one place he had always gone to think, an old basketball court in the South Side, where cracked asphalt bore the scars of decades of pickup games. It was empty this morning, the chain-link fence rattling in the breeze. Marcus got out, walked to the center court, and sat down. This was where he'd grown up, where he and his boys had dreamed of NBA stardom before life dragged them in different directions. Marcus had chosen the corporate grind. He'd clawed his way out of poverty, put himself through college, and built a small logistics company from nothing. By 29, he was on the verge of landing a multi-million-dollar government contract. Now, at 33, he had nothing but a duffel bag of clothes and a revolver he didn't want to use. But he wasn't finished. Not yet. 2 weeks later, Marcus sat in the back corner of a crowded coffee shop, laptop open in front of him. His bank account balance still read $47.38, but his mind was sharp, alive with possibilities. He'd spent the past 14 days devouring books on finance, coding, entrepreneurship, anything to spark a way forward. He watched videos of tech founders, read interviews with investors, memorized every word. If Vanessa could build her empire off his sweat, so could he. No, he'd build something bigger, stronger, untouchable. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "You gonna buy another coffee, or you just camping here?" Marcus looked up at the barista, a young white guy with tattoos and a lip ring. "Yeah," Marcus said. "Sorry, large black coffee." As the barista walked away, Marcus opened a blank Google Doc. At the top, he typed in bold, Project Phoenix, because he was going to rise from these ashes. By month 3, Marcus was sleeping on the floor of his cousin Jamal's one-bedroom apartment, working nights at a warehouse and days as a rideshare driver. Every spare hour, he coded. He wasn't a tech guy by trade, but necessity made him one. He built a prototype app, a streamlined platform connecting small businesses with underutilized delivery drivers. He called it SwiftLink. The first version was clunky, ugly, barely functional, but it worked, and that was enough. Jamal leaned over his shoulder one night as Marcus tested the app on an old phone. "Bruh, you really think people gonna use this?" "They will," Marcus said. "Businesses need affordable delivery, drivers need work. I can cut costs and pay them better than the big companies." Jamal grinned. "Sounds like a plan, CEO." Marcus smiled faintly. CEO. It felt alien on his tongue, but he'd wear that title again, properly this time. 6 months later, Marcus stood outside a nondescript office building with peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights. In his hand was a signed check, his first angel investment. $50,000 from a retired entrepreneur he'd pitched relentlessly. Marcus stared at the check like it was a golden ticket. It wasn't much, but it was enough to hire 2 engineers and secure a tiny office space. The grind began in earnest. A year after his fall, Marcus was back at that same coffee shop, but this time he wasn't hiding in a corner. He sat at the center table, laptop open, reporters buzzing around him. SwiftLink raises $10 million in Series A funding, the headline read on TechCrunch. The photo accompanying the article showed Marcus in a tailored navy suit, his expression calm but his eyes sharp. The interviewer asked him how it felt to be labeled the next black tech mogul. Marcus gave a practiced smile. This is only the beginning. But deep down, the embers of his rage still burned. Vanessa's name wasn't mentioned in any articles. She had no idea he was rising again, no idea what was coming. But she would, soon. The following evening, Marcus sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city skyline. Jamal, now his head of operations, was stretched out on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "You ever gonna tell me why you work like a demon, bro? It ain't just about the money." Marcus sipped his whiskey, eyes on the horizon. "Because someone taught me a lesson I'll never forget." Jamal raised a brow. "And what's that?" "Never let your guard down, and never leave a debt unpaid." As Marcus spoke, his laptop chimed with a notification. Vanessa and her new husband, Richard Harlow, had just announced the acquisition of a rival logistics firm, one Marcus knew intimately. He smiled, a cold, calculated smile. The game was on. The boardroom was silent, except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Marcus stood at the head of a sleek mahogany table, a PowerPoint slide glowing behind him. The words on the screen were simple but powerful. Acquisition Proposal, Harlow Logistics. Around the table sat his team, engineers, lawyers, financial strategists, each hand-picked in the last 6 months. They weren't just employees, they were believers, people who had watched Marcus claw his way up from nothing and trusted his vision. "This is a hostile takeover," said Angela Kim, his head of legal. "If we pull this off, you'll own a controlling interest in Vanessa's company." "Not just Vanessa's," Marcus corrected. "Richard Harlow's too. And when it's mine, I'll dismantle it piece by piece." A murmur rippled around the room. Jamal leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "Bro, I love the revenge vibe, but are we really ready for this? Harlow's got deep pockets." "So do I," Marcus said. "And I've got something he doesn't: hunger." Angela nodded slowly. "We've run the numbers. If we start buying shares quietly through shell companies, we could get to 51% in less than 8 months. But it'll require capital, a lot of it." Marcus turned to his CFO, a lean man named Darian. "Pull from the Series B reserve fund and leverage the equity in SwiftLink. If this works, we'll make it all back tenfold." Darian hesitated. "That's risky. If we overextend—" "We won't," Marcus cut him off. His voice was calm but carried a steel edge. He turned back to the room. "This isn't just business. It's war. And I don't lose wars." That night, Marcus stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, the city sprawling beneath him like a circuit board lit with opportunity. He remembered sleeping in his car, the hunger gnawing at his stomach, the shame that kept him from calling his mother. He remembered the look on Vanessa's face as she called him the X. Never again. His phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Angela. "Phase 1 initiated. We own 3%. Marcus smiled. Phase 1. 3 months later, Marcus strolled into a charity gala at the Ritz-Carlton, dressed in a black tuxedo that fit his frame like it was sculpted there. Cameras flashed as he moved through the crowd, a mixture of tech founders, socialites, and politicians nodding in recognition. He wasn't here for them. His eyes scanned the room until he saw her, Vanessa. She looked exactly as he remembered. Flawless makeup, a crimson gown hugging her curves, diamonds glittering at her throat. Her laughter drifted over the music, light and sweet. Marcus's chest tightened, not with longing, with anticipation. He watched as she leaned on Richard's arm, whispering something in his ear. The older man chuckled, his hand sliding to the small of her back. Marcus picked up a flute of champagne and made his way toward them. When Vanessa saw him, her smile faltered. "Marcus," she said, coolly. "What a surprise." Richard turned, frowning. "This him?" "Yes," Vanessa said, her tone dismissive. "An old, acquaintance." Marcus extended a hand. "Richard Harlow, a pleasure." Richard shook reluctantly. "I've heard of SwiftLink. Impressive growth." "Thank you," Marcus said evenly. "I admire Harlow Logistics as well. You've built quite the empire." Vanessa's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing something beneath his words. "Why are you here?" she asked. Marcus smiled, sipping his champagne. "Just enjoying the evening, and keeping an eye on potential investments." Her gaze sharpened. "You're not—" "Oh, I am. I'm very interested in logistics these days." Before she could respond, he raised his glass in a mock toast. "To new beginnings." Back at his office the next morning, Angela stormed in. "She knows." Marcus didn't look up from his laptop. Let her. "She's called an emergency board meeting for Harlow Logistics. She suspects someone's buying up shares." "Good," Marcus said. "It means she's scared." "Scared people do stupid things," Angela warned. "She'll fight back hard." "I'm counting on it," Marcus replied. 2 weeks later, Harlow Logistics' stock price plummeted after an anonymous tip to the press about questionable offshore accounts tied to Richard. The SEC launched an investigation. Marcus watched the news coverage with a cold, detached satisfaction. "Who leaked it?" Jamal asked. "Does it matter?" Marcus said. "We're at 17%. They'll be too busy scrambling to notice us creeping higher." Vanessa paced her office, heels clicking on marble floors. "He's doing this," she hissed. "Marcus, it has to be him." Richard slammed a fist on the desk. "That little punk doesn't have the resources." "You don't know him," Vanessa snapped. "You didn't see what he was like when he lost everything. That kind of man doesn't disappear. He plots." Richard scowled. "Then we'll bury him before he can make a move." Vanessa turned to the window, her reflection staring back like a stranger. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar clawing at her gut: fear. At Swiftlink's headquarters, Marcus stood over a floor-length map showing Harlow's distribution centers. "We'll hit their logistics lines next," he told his team. "Disrupt deliveries, delay shipments, make their clients doubt them. And if they retaliate, they will," Marcus said, "and we'll be ready." His voice was calm, measured, but his eyes burned with the fire of a man who had nothing to lose. This wasn't just business anymore. This was personal. And he wasn't stopping until Vanessa and Richard were left with nothing but the ashes of their empire. The boardroom at Harlow Logistics was suffocating. Sunlight poured in through glass walls as executives whispered among themselves, their faces pale and tense. Vanessa sat at the head of the table, her crimson nails drumming against the polished wood. Richard sat to her right, jaw clenched. "We've confirmed it," said Martin, the CFO. "An unknown entity has been purchasing shares under several shell companies. As of last night, they control nearly 22%. Richard cursed. "Who the hell is it?" Vanessa didn't answer. She already knew. Marcus's face burned in her mind. Calm, collected, with that unnerving smile at the gala. "It's Marcus King," she said finally. The room fell silent. "The ex-boyfriend?" one of the executives asked incredulously. "Not just an ex," Vanessa said sharply. "He's Swiftlink's founder, and he's playing a long game." Martin adjusted his glasses nervously. "What do we do? If he gets to 30%, he could call for board votes." "We fight back," Richard snapped. "Buy back shares, drive the price up, bleed him dry." "It's not that simple," Vanessa said. "He's leveraging Swiftlink's valuation. Their Series C round closed at $200 million. He's not the same man we left broke." Richard's face reddened. "You mean you left broke?" Vanessa shot him a warning look. "This isn't the time for blame. It's the time for strategy." She leaned forward. "We launch a counteroffensive. Target Swiftlink, undermine their contracts, spread doubt about their reliability. Hit them where it hurts." Martin swallowed hard. "And if that doesn't work?" Vanessa's lips curled into a cold smile. "Then we burn them to the ground." At Swiftlink HQ, Marcus sat in a war room, surrounded by screens tracking Harlow's every move. "They're buying back shares aggressively," Angela reported. "Stock prices climbing. They're trying to squeeze us out." "Expected," Marcus said. "What about their shipments?" "Delays piling up," Jamal grinned. "3 major clients already looking to jump ship." Marcus nodded. "Good. Keep the pressure steady. Not enough to crush them yet, just enough to make them bleed cash." Angela frowned. "Vanessa's not stupid. She'll escalate." "She already has," Marcus said. He gestured to a news headline flashing on one of the screens. "Swiftlink faces reliability concerns amid rapid growth." "She's feeding stories to the press," Marcus said, "planting seeds of doubt." Jamal slammed a fist on the table. "So we hit back harder." "No," Marcus said calmly. "We don't play her game. We change it." He stood, pacing the room. "Vanessa expects a corporate slugfest. What she doesn't expect is us going after her personally." Angela raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about her assets." "Her assets? Her reputation? Her allies?" Marcus's eyes were cold. "We dismantle her world, one brick at a time." 2 weeks later, Vanessa received a package at her office. Inside was a single black feather and a note, "Ashes to ashes." Her hands trembled as she crushed the paper. "Marcus," she whispered. That night, she visited a private club in Midtown, the kind where deals were whispered over $100 cigars. In a dim corner, she met with Victor Hale, a ruthless fixer known for handling corporate problems. I need Marcus King neutralized, Vanessa said, her voice low. Victor arched a brow. You mean professionally or permanently? Professionally, Vanessa snapped. For now. Victor smirked. For now. But Marcus was ready. When Victor's team tried to dig into SwiftLink's financials, they hit encrypted firewalls so complex, even their best hackers couldn't breach them. When they planted fake negative reviews online, Marcus's PR team traced them back and countered with a viral campaign highlighting SwiftLink's community work. Every move Vanessa made, Marcus seemed to anticipate. It's like he's in my head, she hissed to Richard. Then we go nuclear, Richard said. Offer to buy SwiftLink outright. If he refuses, we'll drag him into court with a patent infringement lawsuit. We'll bury him in legal fees. Vanessa nodded slowly. Do it. Marcus received the buyout offer during a late-night strategy session. He read it silently, then laughed, a deep, humorless sound that startled his team. They want to buy us for pennies on the dollar, Angela said, disgusted. Let them try, Marcus said. This isn't about money. It's about principle, and principles aren't for sale. The next morning, a process server tried to hand Marcus a thick envelope outside SwiftLink HQ. Marcus King, you've been served. Marcus took the envelope calmly, opened it, and scanned the contents. Patent infringement, he murmured. He looked up at the server and smiled. Tell Vanessa, good move, but not good enough. Back in his office, Marcus stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker. She thinks she's the predator, he murmured. But in his mind, he could see it clearly. Vanessa and Richard scrambling in the shadows, unaware the real hunt had already begun. And Marcus King was the one with the knife.
Marcus leaned over the polished granite counter of his penthouse kitchen, sipping his espresso as downtown Atlanta sprawled beyond the glass walls. The morning light glinted off towering skyscrapers like 1,000 blades, fitting for a battlefield. On the massive TV screen mounted above his fireplace, a news anchor's voice carried through the open space. Harlow Logistics stock continues its volatile swing today amid rumors of internal strife and an ongoing SEC investigation. Shareholders are demanding answers as questions mount about the leadership of Richard Harlow and Vanessa Clark. Marcus set down his cup and smiled faintly. The cracks were widening faster than even he anticipated. At Harlow HQ, Vanessa's stilettos clicked furiously against marble floors as she stormed into the executive conference room. Her assistant trailed helplessly, clutching a tablet. "Vanessa, the board!" "I know," she snapped. Inside, the directors sat in a tense semicircle. Some avoided her gaze, others watched her like predators scenting blood. "Richard's absence today is troubling," said Howard, an older board member whose tone oozed false concern. "And this latest leak about our offshore accounts—" "We're handling it," Vanessa interrupted, taking her seat. "The media's feeding off speculation. We'll release a statement." Howard steepled his fingers. "Will a statement be enough if our stock drops another 15%? Murmurs rippled around the table. Vanessa's jaw tightened. "This isn't permanent. We're facing an aggressive competitor. A competitor who's managed to buy up 37% of our shares while you and Richard played defense," Howard cut her off. "That stops now," Vanessa said coldly. "We'll initiate a poison pill strategy to block further acquisitions, and we'll secure emergency funding to stabilize the share price." Howard didn't look convinced. "You have until the end of the quarter," he said. "Fix this, or the board will consider alternative leadership." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "Noted." At SwiftLink, Marcus was already 3 steps ahead. "They're going for a poison pill," Angela said, sliding a document across the table. "They'll issue new shares to dilute us." "Expected," Marcus replied. "What about Plan C?" Angela smirked. "Already in motion. Our partners in Singapore and Dubai are acquiring shares through their subsidiaries. Once those are transferred back to us, we'll control 51%, Marcus finished. Jamal grinned. "Checkmate." "Not yet," Marcus said. "This isn't chess, it's war, and Vanessa's not the type to surrender quietly." That evening, Vanessa sat in her private study, a glass of red wine untouched on the desk. The city's lights blurred through tears she refused to shed. How had it come to this? She remembered Marcus in the early days, soft-spoken, ambitious, staring at her like she hung the moon. He had been easy to mold, easy to use. But now he was something else entirely. Her phone buzzed, a text from Victor. Problem handled. Expect results within 48 hours. Vanessa exhaled. At least Victor never failed her. 2 days later, Marcus exited SwiftLink HQ late at night, briefcase in hand. As he approached his car, 3 men emerged from the shadows. "Marcus King?" the tallest one asked. Marcus didn't answer. He noted their stances, the way their hands twitched. Not muggers, professionals. The first punch came fast, but Marcus was faster. He ducked, his briefcase swinging up hard into the man's jaw. A second attacker lunged. Marcus pivoted, driving his elbow into the man's ribs. The third pulled a knife. "Really?" Marcus muttered. A scuffle ensued, but Marcus had spent years training for moments like this. When it was over, 2 men groaned on the pavement, and the third staggered away, clutching his broken wrist. Marcus straightened his jacket and dialed Angela. "Get security footage, send it to the police and the press." "You want the press involved?" she asked. "Yes," Marcus said, voice like ice. "Let the world see what lengths Vanessa Clark will go to." The headline broke the next morning. SwiftLink CEO survives apparent attack, links to Harlow Logistics? Harlow's boardroom erupted in chaos. "Vanessa, did you authorize this?" Howard demanded. "Of course not," she snapped. But Richard's silence spoke volumes. "You've become a liability," Howard said grimly. "The board's convening an emergency vote." Vanessa's blood ran cold. At SwiftLink, Marcus watched the live broadcast of Harlow's board meeting. Vanessa stood at the podium, eyes hard, chin high. "I have led this company to global success," she said. "I will not be undermined by baseless allegations or corporate raiders." But the board's faces were unreadable. The vote was called. One by one, the directors cast their decisions. When the tally appeared on screen, Marcus's phone buzzed. Angela's voice came through. "She's out. You're the majority shareholder." Marcus smiled. "Good. Schedule a meeting with the remaining board members. It's time they met their new boss." That night, Vanessa returned to her penthouse to find Marcus waiting. He stood by the window, the city glittering behind him. "You have nerve coming here," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "I own this building now," Marcus said calmly, "and I thought it polite to welcome my newest tenant." Vanessa's hands curled into fists. "You've taken everything from me." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes dark and unreadable. "No, Vanessa, I only took back what you stole. Consider us even." She laughed bitterly. "You think you've won? You'll never be like me." Marcus's lips curved into a cold smile. "You're right. I'll be better."
Marcus stood at the head of the long conference table, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Harlow's former boardroom. The embossed Harlow Logistics logo on the wall had already been replaced with King Global Holdings in bold silver letters. The room was silent as the board members, those who had once plotted against him, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Gentlemen, ladies," Marcus began, his tone calm but edged with steel. "You're looking at the new owner of this empire, and let me be clear, I didn't come this far to play by your old rules." A few directors cleared their throats nervously. "I expect loyalty," Marcus continued. "I expect results, and I expect all traces of Vanessa Clark's toxic influence to be eradicated." Howard, the same man who had once demanded Vanessa's resignation, raised a tentative hand. "Mr. King, some of us still have questions about your long-term vision for—" Marcus's gaze cut him off mid-sentence. "My long-term vision," Marcus said evenly, "is simple: expansion, diversification, and dominance. Anyone who can't align with that vision is free to leave, today." The silence that followed was suffocating. No one moved. Good, Marcus said with a small, cold smile. Let's get to work. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat alone in a dimly lit hotel suite across town. The penthouse had been vacated overnight after Marcus's team froze her assets and reclaimed every property under Harlow's name. Her phone buzzed, the screen flashing with a number she didn't recognize. She answered reluctantly. "Vanessa Clark?" a voice purred. "Who is this?" she snapped. "Someone who admires your resilience. I represent investors who see value in a comeback story." Vanessa's brows furrowed. "I'm listening." "We believe Marcus King isn't invincible. With the right backing, you could take back everything he stole." "I'm not interested in charity," Vanessa said flatly. "This isn't charity," the voice replied. "It's revenge." The line went dead. Vanessa stared at the phone, her mind already spinning with possibilities. Back at King Global Holdings, Marcus walked the floors of the office building, observing teams working on logistics software, green energy solutions, and supply chain analytics. His empire was no longer just a freight company, it was becoming a tech-forward conglomerate. Angela fell into step beside him. "We've secured new contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies," she said, "and the Dubai venture is weeks from launch." "Good," Marcus said. "What about security?" "Fortified. No more surprise attacks." "Never again," Marcus murmured. At a private dinner that evening, Marcus met with influential figures, politicians, media moguls, and international financiers. They toasted him as a visionary, as a king reborn. But even as glasses clinked and laughter filled the room, Marcus's mind wandered to Vanessa. He knew she wasn't finished. She wouldn't go quietly into the night. 2 weeks later, his instincts were proven right. A breaking news alert flashed across screens in King Global's offices. Former Harlow CEO Vanessa Clark announces new venture, Novax Logistics. Angela stormed into Marcus's office. "She's partnered with Titan Capital. They're throwing billions at her new company." Marcus didn't flinch. "I expected as much." "She's poaching staff. 3 of our senior engineers resigned this morning." "Let them go," Marcus said. "Anyone disloyal now would have been a liability later." Angela hesitated. "You don't seem worried." "I'm not." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Vanessa's playing catch-up. We've already outgrown her old game." But Vanessa wasn't just playing catch-up. In a sleek new office, she addressed a room full of fresh recruits. Some former Harlow employees, others ambitious young talent eager to make their mark. "Marcus King underestimated me once," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "He won't get the chance to do it again." Her eyes burned with resolve. "This time, we're going to bury him." At King Global's next quarterly meeting, Marcus outlined plans for international expansion into Africa and South America, areas Vanessa hadn't touched in her Harlow days. As he spoke, he sensed the tension in the room, the subtle shift among board members who still remembered Vanessa's iron grip. "Some of you may doubt my methods," Marcus said coolly, addressing them directly. "But let me remind you, doubt has no place in this room. Only progress." The applause that followed was hesitant, but grew louder under Marcus's unblinking gaze. Later that night, Marcus stood alone on the balcony of his penthouse. The city lights stretched endlessly, a glittering reminder of how far he'd come. Yet in the distance, beyond the skyscrapers, he imagined Vanessa staring back. They were 2 predators circling the same prey, power. And Marcus knew this war was far from over. The early morning sun reflected off the towering glass buildings of downtown Atlanta, but inside King Global Holdings, the atmosphere was far from calm. Angela strode briskly into Marcus's corner office, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. She carried a folder so thick it threatened to spill its contents. "They hit us again," she said sharply, dropping the folder on his desk. Marcus didn't flinch. He closed the financial report he'd been reviewing and looked up, his dark eyes calm but sharp as a blade. "Where?" "Our renewable energy division," Angela replied. "Nova X undercut us on 3 major contracts in South America, and now the Brazilian government is reconsidering our deal." Marcus tapped a finger against his desk, considering. She's moving faster than I expected. She's moving recklessly, Jamal interjected from the doorway. He entered the room, adjusting his gold cufflinks. Nova X is burning through Titan Capital's cash like it's free. That kind of growth isn't sustainable. But it's enough to hurt us in the short term, Angela countered. Our stock took another 3% dip this morning. Marcus stood, his tailored charcoal suit molding perfectly to his tall frame. He moved to the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the city skyline. Vanessa thinks she's cornered me, he said quietly. She doesn't realize I've been preparing for this since the day she threw me out of my own home. Meanwhile, at Nova X's gleaming new headquarters, Vanessa was in high spirits. Her executive team gathered around a sleek glass table, charts and graphs projected on the wall showing their aggressive rise. We've secured 45% of the domestic logistics market in less than 6 months, her CFO reported, and with Titan Capital's continued backing, we're positioned to expand into Europe by Q3. Vanessa smiled, sipping her espresso. Marcus underestimated me once. Now he's too slow to catch up. A junior analyst hesitated before speaking up. But with all due respect, Miss Clark, King Global's reserves still dwarf ours. If they decide to— Enough, Vanessa said sharply, her smile fading. Marcus may have resources, but I have something stronger, momentum. And momentum wins wars. Back at King Global, Marcus met with his inner circle in a private strategy session. Angela pulled up a map on the touchscreen table, dotted with markers showing Nova X's growing influence. She's targeting every sector we operate in, she said. Logistics, renewable energy, AI integration. She's even trying to poach our shipping contracts in Southeast Asia. Marcus studied the map, his face an unreadable mask. She's spread too thin, he murmured. That's her mistake. Jamal leaned forward. What's the play? Marcus's eyes hardened. We cut her off at the knees. Within weeks, Marcus launched a multi-pronged counterattack. First, King Global slashed shipping prices in key markets, leveraging its superior infrastructure to absorb the losses. Smaller competitors folded under the pressure, leaving Nova X isolated. Next, Marcus secured exclusive long-term contracts with major tech firms, locking Vanessa out of critical supply chains. Then came the media offensive. Headlines erupted across financial news outlets. Nova X growth unsustainable, analysts warn of overextension. Titan Capital under pressure as Nova X bleeds cash. Sources claim Nova X faces internal turmoil amid aggressive expansion. Vanessa slammed her tablet down during a meeting, the screen spiderwebbing from the impact. Marcus, she spat. He's trying to break us in the press. Her PR chief spoke cautiously. We're countering with positive stories, but the narrative is shifting. Then shift it back, Vanessa growled. Buy influence if we have to. I won't lose. But the real blow came when Titan Capital announced a strategic reevaluation of their partnership with Nova X. Vanessa's CFO burst into her office, pale and panicked. They're pulling $200 million in funding, effective immediately. Vanessa felt the blood drain from her face. Call them, she ordered. Get me the chairman on the phone. They won't take your calls. For the first time, Vanessa felt the cold edge of fear. At King Global's annual gala, Marcus made his victory public. He stood at the podium, his voice calm, measured, lethal. When you try to build an empire on vengeance, he said, his gaze sweeping over the room, don't be surprised when it collapses under its own weight. The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed as Marcus descended the stage, shaking hands with dignitaries and CEOs. But his mind wasn't on the applause. It was on Vanessa. Late that night, he received a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. V. Marcus smirked as he set down his phone. No, he murmured, it isn't. Vanessa sat in her darkened apartment, a glass of whiskey untouched in her hand. The skyline glittered mockingly outside, each light a reminder of Marcus's triumph. Nova X's offices were quiet now. Half the staff had been let go after Titan Capital's abrupt withdrawal, and contracts were evaporating faster than she could replace them. Her phone buzzed. "Vanessa Clark?" "Yes," she answered curtly. "This is Darius Chen. I've been following your situation." "And?" "I'm prepared to inject $500 million into Nova X, but I have conditions." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." "You go on the offensive. Not in boardrooms, not in the press. Personal, up close. You know Marcus. You know his weaknesses. Exploit them." Vanessa felt a dangerous spark light inside her. Done. At King Global, Marcus was reviewing expansion plans when Angela entered. "There's been a breach," she said grimly. Marcus arched an eyebrow. "Define breach." "Vanessa. She's filed a lawsuit claiming you engaged in corporate sabotage and violated anti-competition laws. It's already trending." Marcus's jaw tightened. Classic Vanessa. When she can't win in the market, she runs to the courts. "This isn't just legal," Angela said. "She's also releasing a documentary, King Unmasked." "Tell me you're joking." Angela shook her head. "It's already got millions of views on the teaser. She's accusing you of fraud, exploitation, and destroying minority-owned businesses." Marcus exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of his desk. "She's going for character assassination." "Yes, and it's working. Sponsors are pulling out of your charity gala. Investors are asking questions." 2 days later, Marcus watched clips of the documentary in his penthouse. Vanessa appeared on screen, her eyes glistening with carefully curated tears. "I believed in Marcus King once," she said. "I thought he was different. But power changes people. He destroyed lives to build his empire." Montages followed: laid-off workers, environmental protesters, community leaders shaking their heads. Marcus slammed the laptop shut. "She's good," he admitted. "Too good." Angela crossed her arms. "What's the plan?" Marcus stared out at the city. "We hit back harder. Full audit of Nova X. Find me something, anything we can use." Meanwhile, Vanessa visited her old neighborhood, cameras following as she hugged children and listened to residents. "You see," she told the camera crew, "this is who Marcus forgot when he climbed his golden ladder." The footage went viral within hours. Jamal burst into Marcus's office later that week. "She's in talks with Horizon Ventures. If she locks them in, she's back in the game." Marcus leaned back, expression unreadable. "She's trying to play me emotionally. I won't bite." Jamal frowned. "You're sure? Because she's convincing a lot of people you're the villain here." Marcus's voice dropped to a deadly calm. "Then it's time I reminded everyone who built this empire." Marcus attended a press conference days later, flanked by lawyers and community leaders he had supported quietly for years. "For too long," he began, "certain individuals have sought to rewrite history and paint themselves as victims. The truth is clear. I built King Global from nothing, and I will not allow lies to tarnish that legacy." He unveiled plans for a $2 billion initiative to fund minority entrepreneurs and rebuild underserved neighborhoods. The crowd erupted in applause. Vanessa watched from her apartment, her hands clenched. "He's flipping the narrative," her PR chief said nervously. "Your approval ratings are dropping." Vanessa stood abruptly. "Schedule an interview. Prime time. I'll go on air and expose everything." That night, Vanessa faced Marcus live on a televised debate. The tension crackled like static as the host introduced them. Tonight, two titans of industry, Marcus King and Vanessa Clark. Vanessa's opening salvo was sharp. "You built your empire on betrayal and exploitation. You're not a king, you're a thief." Marcus didn't flinch. "And you," he countered, his voice like ice, "you used me to climb the ladder, then blamed me when you fell. You don't want justice, Vanessa. You want revenge." The audience watched riveted as barbs flew back and forth. By the end, social media was ablaze. Hashtag Team Marcus vs hashtag Team Vanessa. Who's the real villain? Back at her apartment, Vanessa stared at the screen, her jaw tight. She had drawn blood, but Marcus wasn't down. "Fine," she whispered. "You want a war? I'll give you one." The city's lights shimmered beneath a velvet sky as Vanessa stood on the balcony of her penthouse, phone pressed to her ear. "I want full access," she said coldly. "Emails, financial records, personal connections. If Marcus King so much as jaywalked, I want to know about it." "Yes, Miss Clark," her investigator replied. "But you should know, pushing this hard, you might uncover things you don't want to see." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "I don't care. I'm not stopping until he's ruined." Across town, Marcus sat alone in his study. The crackle of the fireplace filled the silence as he reviewed a dossier thicker than a brick. It wasn't Vanessa's company records, it was her past. He had resisted this path, resisted making it personal, but she had drawn first blood with her documentary and public attacks. Angela's voice echoed in his head from earlier that day. "Marcus, are you sure you want to do this? Once you pull the trigger, there's no going back." He closed the folder, his decision made. The next morning, the headlines splashed across every major news outlet. Nova X CEO's dark past exposed, embezzlement scandal and non-profit fraud. The article detailed Vanessa's involvement with a non-profit during her college years. Funds had gone missing under her watch, and while charges were never filed, the implications were damning. Vanessa's phone exploded with calls, investors, board members, her own team demanding answers. At Nova X's headquarters, chaos reigned. "This is a smear campaign," Vanessa shouted, slamming her palm on the conference table. "But the documents are real," her CFO said nervously. "Even if the allegations are old, the damage to our reputation—" "Find me a counterattack," Vanessa barked. That night, Marcus appeared on a late-night news special, calm and charismatic. "I didn't want to do this," he told the interviewer, "but my character has been under attack for months. People deserve to know the truth about who's been smearing my name." He didn't have to gloat. The poll numbers spoke for themselves. Public opinion swung hard in his favor. Vanessa paced her apartment like a caged tiger. Her phone buzzed. It was Darius Chen. "You're losing ground," Darius said bluntly. "I can't keep backing a sinking ship." "Don't you dare pull out," Vanessa snarled. "I'm close. I just need one opening." "Then create one," Darius replied before hanging up. The next morning, Vanessa stepped out of a sleek black SUV and into the courthouse. Cameras flashed as she strode up the steps in a crimson power suit, exuding defiance. She was filing a countersuit against Marcus for defamation, claiming the nonprofit allegations were fabricated. Meanwhile, Marcus watched the news coverage from his office, a faint smile playing at his lips. "She's walking into a trap," Angela said. "We have receipts showing the documents came from public records. She won't win." "She doesn't know how to lose," Marcus replied. "That makes her dangerous." Behind closed doors, Vanessa's legal team was less confident. "These countersuits could backfire," her attorney warned. "If Marcus's team proves their sources are legitimate, you'll be liable for damages." "I don't care," Vanessa hissed. "I'm not backing down." Days later, Marcus attended a charity gala at the King Global Foundation. He worked the room effortlessly, shaking hands, posing for photos, and cementing his reputation as a pillar of the community. Vanessa watched the live stream from her penthouse, rage boiling in her chest. "I'll take everything from you," she whispered to the screen. "Your company, your fortune, your reputation, just like you took mine." But Marcus wasn't finished. A week later, a bombshell report hit the airwaves. Nova X had been accused of exploiting underpaid workers in its overseas factories. The evidence was overwhelming. Photos, testimony, pay stubs. Vanessa's phone rang non-stop. "Miss Clark, we're under investigation," her COO said. "The Department of Labor is involved." "Shut it down," Vanessa ordered. "It's too late," he replied grimly. "The damage is done." At King Global, Marcus sat at the head of the boardroom table, his executives visibly relaxed for the first time in months. "It's over," Angela said. "Nova X's stock has cratered. Their investors are fleeing. She can't recover from this." Marcus didn't respond. His thoughts were elsewhere, on the woman who once laughed beside him in bed, shared dreams and whispered promises. That night, Vanessa sat alone in her apartment, lights off, a half-empty glass of whiskey in her hand. A news anchor's voice droned from the TV. Industry analysts predict Nova X's imminent collapse following allegations of labor exploitation. CEO Vanessa Clark has yet to issue a statement. Vanessa stared at the screen, her face illuminated by flickering images of her own downfall. Then her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It didn't have to be this way. Her hand trembled as she read it again and again. It didn't have to be this way. Her reply was a single word: coward. The sound of her own breathing filled Vanessa's penthouse as she stood in front of the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled below, indifferent to her crumbling world. Once, that skyline had been a symbol of her ambition, her rise, her dominance. Now, it felt like a mockery. She hadn't slept. Her lawyers had spent the night calling with updates, each more devastating than the last. Her board was fracturing. Horizon Ventures had formally withdrawn, and her personal accounts were under scrutiny from federal regulators. Vanessa Clark was no longer the predator. She was the prey, and Marcus King was hunting her. She gripped the edge of her desk until her knuckles turned white. This wasn't over. Not yet. Her phone buzzed. It wasn't a call this time, but an encrypted message from one of her last loyal contacts. "I have what you need, but it comes at a cost." Vanessa stared at the screen, then typed back without hesitation. "I'll pay it." 2 hours later, in a dimly lit parking garage on the edge of the city, she met him. Malik Rivera, former King Global security chief turned whistleblower. He looked rougher than she remembered, grizzled beard, dark circles under his eyes, and paranoia in every twitch. "You sure about this, Vanessa?" he asked, hands buried deep in the pockets of his threadbare jacket. "This is a one-way street." "I don't have the luxury of hesitation," she said sharply. "What do you have?" Malik pulled a flash drive from his pocket and held it up. Proof that Marcus funneled millions through shell companies to bribe foreign officials. Tax evasion, money laundering, all of it hidden behind charitable fronts. Vanessa's pulse quickened. How solid? Rock solid. But it'll take down more than Marcus. You expose this, King Global burns too. Thousands of jobs, pensions, lives gone. For a moment, a flicker of doubt crossed her face, but only for a moment. "I'll live with that," she said, snatching the drive from his hand. At King Global, Marcus was meeting with Angela and his legal team. "Vanessa's countersuit won't hold," Angela said confidently, "but the optics are messy. We should consider a settlement to shut her down completely." Marcus shook his head. "No, settlements are for people who believe they might lose. I don't lose." Angela hesitated. She had worked with Marcus long enough to recognize the subtle strain in his eyes. The sleepless nights, the constant battles, Vanessa had taken a toll. "Marcus, be careful," she said quietly. "You've built an empire. Don't let one vendetta consume you." He didn't respond, just stared out the window. 3 days later, Marcus walked into his office to find Jamal waiting with a grim expression. "You need to see this," Jamal said, handing over a tablet. Marcus tapped the screen. A video played, Malik Rivera, face blurred, voice disguised, outlining King Global's offshore schemes in damning detail. The headline screamed across the screen. "Explosive allegations. King Global accused of international corruption." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Release damage control statements now," he ordered, but his voice lacked its usual steel. Angela appeared at the door, her face pale. "Marcus, the SEC just announced a full investigation." Meanwhile, Vanessa watched the chaos unfold from her apartment, a grim satisfaction in her eyes. She'd sent the files to every major outlet simultaneously. The story had detonated like a bomb, and King Global was reeling. "Checkmate," she whispered. But even as she spoke the word, unease coiled in her gut. Her phone rang. It was Malik again. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, voice urgent. "But Marcus isn't going down quietly. He's pulling every string he has left. Watch your back." Vanessa's grip on her phone tightened. 2 nights later, she returned home to find her apartment door ajar. Her pulse spiked as she stepped in cautiously. The lights were off. The air felt wrong, like a storm building. "Vanessa." The voice came from the darkness. Smooth, deep, familiar. She turned and saw him. Marcus, standing by her window, silhouetted against the city lights. "How did you get in here?" she demanded, masking her fear with fury. "I have my ways," Marcus said calmly. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," she snapped. "You're finished." "Am I?" He stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. "Do you really think you've won?" "I don't think, I know." Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You don't understand what you've started. You're playing with fire, Vanessa." "Funny, that's what they said about you once." For a moment, silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Then Marcus spoke, softly, almost regretfully. "I didn't want it to come to this, but you've left me no choice." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll see." And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving Vanessa standing alone, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The next morning, Vanessa's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. "Breaking: IRS opens investigation into Vanessa Clark's personal finances." "DOJ subpoena issued for Novak CEO in tax fraud case." Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the headlines. Marcus had countered harder and faster than she thought possible. Angela watched from her office as King Global's stock began to stabilize. "Looks like he's turning it around," she murmured. But Jamal wasn't so sure. This isn't over, not by a long shot. That night, Vanessa sat in the darkness of her apartment, alone again. The war had escalated beyond either of their control. She poured herself a glass of whiskey and stared at the city. 2 titans locked in battle, neither willing to fall. And somewhere deep inside, she felt it, the terrifying certainty. One of them wasn't going to walk away from this.
Marcus hadn't slept in 2 days. His office smelled of cold coffee and desperation. The once pristine space bore the marks of a mind unraveling. Papers strewn across the floor, a half-eaten sandwich abandoned on the mahogany desk, blinds drawn to block out the accusing sunlight. Jamal entered cautiously, holding a tablet. "We've contained most of the immediate damage, but the press is relentless. Investors are jittery, and—" he hesitated. "And what?" Marcus's voice was hoarse, dangerous. "Federal agents raided our Cayman offices this morning. They're looking for the shell companies." Marcus rubbed his temples, the weight of his empire pressing down on his shoulders. "They won't find anything. I made sure of it." Jamal didn't answer. He wasn't so sure anymore. Across the city, Vanessa sat at a sleek conference table surrounded by her legal team. "This isn't good," said Laura, her lead counsel. "The DOJ's case against you is picking up steam. They're scrutinizing every financial move you've made in the past decade. Offshore accounts, property transfers, even your donations." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "It's Marcus. He's using his contacts in Washington to hit me where it hurts." "Then we need a counterpunch," Laura replied. Vanessa stood and began pacing, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Malik's evidence should have been enough, but Marcus, he's always been 3 steps ahead." "Then we need to get 4 steps ahead," said another attorney. "We're looking into whistleblowers inside King Global. Someone has to know where the real bodies are buried." Vanessa paused. "Do it. And dig deeper into his personal life. If there's any weakness, I want it exposed." But as her team filed out, Vanessa felt an unease settle in her stomach. This war had consumed her life. Her reflection in the glass window looked like a stranger. Tired eyes, sharp lines around her mouth, a coldness she barely recognized. That evening, Angela found herself in a dimly lit restaurant across from Marcus. He looked haggard but determined, swirling a glass of bourbon in his hand.
"You're burning the candle at both ends," she said softly. "I've never seen you like this." "I can't afford weakness," Marcus replied. "Maybe not, but this isn't sustainable. Vanessa's not backing down, and our people are nervous. Some are already whispering about jumping ship." Marcus's eyes flicked up to meet hers. "Are you?" Angela hesitated. "You know me better than that." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it herself. 2 nights later, Vanessa was leaving her office late when she noticed a black SUV idling across the street. She quickened her pace, glancing over her shoulder. Her driver opened the car door, but before she could step inside, a voice called out from the shadows. "Vanessa Clark." She turned sharply. A man in a dark suit approached, flashing a badge. "Special Agent Ryan Ellis, FBI. We need to talk." Her stomach dropped. "If this is about Marcus," Ellis interrupted, "it's about you. We have evidence of tax fraud and obstruction. I'm afraid you'll need to come with us." Vanessa's instincts screamed at her. This wasn't a routine arrest. It was Marcus's hand again, pulling strings. But the cold steel of handcuffs around her wrists left no room for argument. As the SUV pulled away, Marcus watched from his own vehicle, parked half a block away, his face an unreadable mask. Hours later, in an interrogation room, Ellis leaned across the table. "You're a smart woman, Miss Clark. You know how these things end. Cooperate with us, and we can discuss leniency." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" "Give us Marcus King. Everything you know. Help us bring him down, and you might walk away with your empire intact." For a long moment, Vanessa didn't speak. Then a slow, cold smile spread across her face. "You're trying to play me against him. Clever, but you have no idea what you're stepping into." Ellis frowned. "This isn't a game." "Oh, Agent Ellis," Vanessa said softly, "it's the only game worth playing." Meanwhile, Marcus was in his office, reviewing files when Angela walked in. "We have a problem," she said quietly. "What now?" "Jamal. He's been talking to Vanessa's people." Marcus froze. "Are you sure?" Angela nodded. "Positive. He's feeding her information, leaks about our legal strategy, financials, even your personal holdings." Rage flared in Marcus's chest, hot and blinding. "I trusted him. He's been with me since the beginning." Angela's expression was unreadable. "What do you want me to do?" Marcus's eyes hardened. "Handle it. Discreetly." 3 days later, Jamal's resignation made headlines. Personal reasons, the press release said. But those inside King Global whispered about late-night meetings and a sudden unexplained disappearance. Vanessa, sitting in her penthouse, read the news with a frown. Jamal had been her lifeline into Marcus's empire. Now that door was closed. She poured herself a glass of wine, staring out at the city lights. This war had escalated beyond legal maneuvers or boardroom strategies. It was now a battle of survival. Marcus sat alone in his office that night, the weight of his decisions pressing on him. His reflection in the darkened window looked like a man he barely recognized, ruthless, relentless, and utterly alone. As he took a sip of bourbon, his phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number. "You can't destroy me. I've already won. Vanessa." Marcus stared at the message, a muscle ticking in his jaw. This wasn't over. It was only the beginning of the end.
The winter air bit at Marcus's skin as he stepped out of the black sedan, the glow of his penthouse tower looming like a sentinel over the city. He tightened his wool coat around him, his jaw set in grim determination. This wasn't just a business war anymore. It had bled into his bones, infected every corner of his life. Angela was waiting for him in the marble-floored lobby. She had traded her usual warmth for a mask of efficiency, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "She's pushing harder," Angela said quietly as they rode the elevator. "Vanessa's lawyers filed a motion today for emergency injunctions. If the judge grants it, we could lose control of 3 subsidiaries by the end of the week." Marcus exhaled through his nose, fists clenched. "She wants to bleed me dry before I can counterattack." Angela hesitated. "She's good at this. Maybe too good for even you." The elevator chimed, and Marcus strode out without responding.
Across town, Vanessa lounged in a velvet armchair, her silk robe catching the firelight as she cradled a glass of Merlot. Malik sat across from her, laptop open, a spreadsheet glowing on the screen. "King Global is overextended," Malik said. "If we time this right, we can force a liquidity crisis. One bad quarter and his empire collapses." Vanessa sipped her wine. "I want more than collapse. I want humiliation. He ruined my name, destroyed my partnerships, made me a pariah in circles I built from nothing." Malik's expression tightened. "You're making this personal. That's dangerous." "Marcus made it personal first," Vanessa snapped. Then her voice softened, but her eyes were steel. "I'm not stopping until he's a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms." 2 days later, Marcus stood before his inner circle in the war room. Screens flashed stock tickers and legal briefs. "We're bleeding," said Henry, his CFO. "Vanessa's maneuvers are scaring investors. Our stock is down 15% in a month." "She has allies in the regulatory agencies," added another advisor. "Inspections, audits, they're choking our operations." Marcus's knuckles whitened against the edge of the table. "Enough. We fight fire with fire." Angela exchanged a glance with Henry. "What's the play?" Marcus's eyes were like cold obsidian. "We dig until we find her vulnerabilities. Everyone has them. A secret lover, a dirty deal, something we can use to break her." A heavy silence fell over the room. At the same time, Vanessa attended a gala at the Metropolitan Museum. Dazzling in a crimson gown, she floated from conversation to conversation, projecting untouchable confidence. But in the shadows, Marcus's men watched her every move. Cameras clicked, notes were taken. One of them sent Marcus a photo that night, Vanessa laughing with a man identified as a Swiss banker with ties to offshore accounts. Marcus's lips curled into a wolfish smile. "Found you," he whispered. But Vanessa wasn't blind. A week later, Malik intercepted a report from one of Marcus's operatives. Vanessa studied it, her mouth pressed into a thin line. "He's tailing me," she said. "He thinks he's clever." "Then we use it," Malik suggested. "Feed them false information, lead them into a trap." Vanessa nodded slowly. "Let's give Marcus King a story so compelling he can't resist following it straight into my hands." 2 weeks later, Marcus received an anonymous tip. Vanessa was meeting in secret with a high-ranking government official to finalize a deal that could crush King Global. He didn't hesitate. "Send a team," he ordered. "I want every detail, photos, audio, evidence." But when his men burst into the hotel suite, they found only Vanessa, sitting alone with a glass of champagne and a small smile. "You came," she said, her voice silk and steel. "How predictable." Before the agents could react, federal marshals swarmed the room. Marcus's men were arrested for illegal surveillance. The sting operation was a success. Vanessa had set the bait perfectly. That night, Marcus stared at his phone, watching a video of his operatives being handcuffed. His reflection in the black screen was that of a man cornered. Angela entered quietly. "We underestimated her." "Never again," Marcus growled. "She thinks she's won, but I'm not finished." Angela crossed her arms. "At what cost, Marcus? You're burning your company down for revenge." He turned on her, eyes blazing. "This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about survival." Angela didn't flinch. "And when there's nothing left, no company, no allies, just ashes?" Marcus looked away. For the first time in years, doubt flickered in his eyes. Meanwhile, Vanessa stood on her penthouse balcony, wind tugging at her hair, as she stared out over the glittering city. Malik joined her, his expression uneasy. "You've pushed him into a corner," he said. "Be careful. That's when predators are most dangerous." Vanessa sipped her wine. "Let him come. I've been in corners my whole life. I know how to fight my way out." But in her heart, she felt a pang of fear she couldn't quite name. Because Marcus King wasn't like anyone she'd ever faced before. Marcus stared at the city skyline from his office window, his reflection fractured across the glass. It was a bitter January night, and the cold seemed to seep into his bones. The sting of Vanessa's latest move still burned in his chest. He had been outmaneuvered, again. But not this time. He turned to Angela, who stood beside his desk with her tablet. "Are the offshore accounts traced?" he asked. Angela nodded. "We found 5 shell corporations tied to Vanessa, all registered in the Caymans under aliases, but the paper trail links back to her Swiss banker friend." A grim smile tugged at Marcus's lips. "Good. Leak it to the press." Angela hesitated. "This could destroy her reputation. It's not just business now. You're going for blood." Marcus's gaze hardened. "She wants me ruined. I'm giving her what she asked for." Angela said nothing more, but in her eyes a quiet unease lingered. 2 days later, headlines screamed across financial news outlets. Vanessa Steel linked to offshore tax havens and shady deals. Stock in Steel International plummeted. Clients pulled contracts. The air of invincibility Vanessa had worn like armor began to crack. In her office, Vanessa read the articles in silence, her face an unreadable mask. Malik paced behind her. "He's playing dirty," Malik said. "This could bring investigations, even indictments." Vanessa set her tablet down carefully. "He's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes." Malik's brow furrowed. "What's the counter?" She rose and walked to the window, her hands clasped behind her back. "We let him believe he's won. Then we take everything." The next morning, Marcus attended a board meeting, his executives eager now that Vanessa's empire was faltering. "Steel International's assets are vulnerable," said Henry, the CFO. "We should move to acquire their logistics division. It's their backbone." Marcus nodded. "Prepare the offer." But as the boardroom buzzed with plans, Angela leaned close and whispered, "You're moving too fast. What if this is a trap?" Marcus shook his head. "She's on the ropes. Now's the time to strike." But Angela's gut told her otherwise. That night, Vanessa met in secret with a group of international investors. The room was dimly lit, shadows curling like smoke around the edges. "We're ready to move," said one investor, a Middle Eastern magnate. "But your position is weakening. Why should we risk aligning with you?" Vanessa's eyes flashed. "Because Marcus King thinks he's winning. While he's busy dancing in the flames, we'll be buying the ground beneath his feet." The magnate considered her for a long moment, then nodded. "We're in." 3 weeks later, Marcus finalized the acquisition of Steel International's logistics division, or so he thought. The moment the ink dried, federal agents stormed King Global's offices with warrants. Angela burst into Marcus's office, pale and shaken. "They're raiding us. Securities fraud, insider trading. They're coming for everything." Marcus's blood turned to ice. What the hell is happening? Angela shoved a document onto his desk. "The logistics division you acquired, Vanessa orchestrated it. It was a poisoned asset. Hidden liabilities, falsified valuations, pending lawsuits. She set you up." Marcus slammed his fist on the desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot. On the other side of the city, Vanessa watched the news coverage with a glass of champagne in hand. King Global under federal investigation. Her lips curved into a predatory smile. "Checkmate," she whispered. Marcus sat alone in his office, the empire he had built crumbling around him. The screens flashed red, plunging stocks, contract terminations, subpoenas. Angela appeared in the doorway, her voice low. "You need to step back. Let legal handle this." But Marcus's eyes burned with a dark fire. "No, I'm not done. She hasn't broken me yet." "Marcus." He stood abruptly, his chair clattering to the floor. "I will burn this world down before I let her win." Angela said nothing as she stormed past him. But deep in her chest, fear coiled like a serpent. Meanwhile, Vanessa lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. For all her victories, a strange emptiness gnawed at her. She thought of Marcus, not as a rival, but as the man who had once loved her, who had once believed in her. Had she gone too far? Malik's words echoed in her head. Be careful. Cornered predators are the most dangerous. Marcus called a secret meeting with his most loyal allies. Only 4 showed up. Everything we've built is under siege, Marcus said. Vanessa thinks she's won, but I'm not out. Not yet. I have one last play. Angela frowned. What kind of play? Marcus's eyes gleamed with cold resolve. The kind that ends this. For good. The room fell silent, because they all knew, whatever Marcus was planning, it would leave scars on both sides.
The cold air in Marcus's private hangar smelled of jet fuel and desperation. He stood at the edge of his Gulfstream, hands buried in the pockets of his overcoat, eyes locked on Angela as she approached. "You're leaving?" she asked, her breath fogging in the chill. "Not leaving," Marcus replied flatly. "Positioning." Angela frowned. "Marcus, the DOJ is circling. The SEC froze 3 of your accounts this morning. You can't just vanish and expect this to blow over." "I'm not vanishing." His voice was steel. "Vanessa thinks she's won, but she's made the same mistake everyone does. She underestimated what I'm willing to do." Angela's eyes hardened. "Whatever you're planning, you don't want to know," Marcus cut her off. "Just hold the line. When I call, move fast." The engines roared to life. Marcus gave her a final look before boarding. "When this is over, the board will either crown me a savior or hang me as a tyrant. Either way, Vanessa Steele won't see it coming." Vanessa paced her glass-walled office in the pre-dawn gloom, barefoot, her silk robe flowing behind her. Malik sat on the couch, scrolling through the latest headlines on his phone. King Global is hemorrhaging, layoffs, asset seizures, creditors circling. You did it. But Vanessa didn't smile. She stared out at the sleeping city, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. "Why doesn't it feel like victory?" she murmured. Malik set down his phone. "Because it's not over. Marcus King isn't the kind of man who dies quietly." Vanessa's fingers tightened on the railing. "Then let him come. This time, I'll bury him." 3 days later, a storm broke over the financial world. King Global filed a lawsuit against Steel International, alleging fraudulent inducement in the logistics acquisition. Marcus's lawyers moved with surgical precision, unearthing decades-old transactions, questionable donations, and shady government contracts tied to Vanessa's empire. The media exploded. Steel International hit with $1.2 billion lawsuit. Vanessa Steele's business practices under scrutiny. Vanessa slammed her laptop shut in her penthouse. He's going scorched earth. Malik's jaw tightened. If he succeeds, you could be indicted. Then we hit back harder, Vanessa snapped. I want every skeleton in his closet dragged into the light. Affairs, bribes, anything. But Marcus was already ahead of her. From a remote estate in the Bahamas, he worked around the clock with a team of shadowy operatives and forensic accountants. They uncovered offshore accounts, hidden stockpiles of Steel International's funds, and damning internal memos. Angela's voice came through on a secure call. "Marcus, you're crossing lines that can't be uncrossed." "I crossed them the moment Vanessa came after my family name," Marcus said coldly. "This ends now." Weeks later, Vanessa arrived at a federal courthouse, reporters shouting her name. She walked with her head high, draped in an ivory coat, but inside her stomach churned. Her attorneys whispered urgently, "King's evidence is strong, if the DOJ acts on it." "I'm not going to prison," Vanessa hissed. "Not for that man." Meanwhile, Marcus sat in a dim hotel suite overlooking Wall Street, watching the chaos on live TV. Angela entered quietly, setting a folder on the table. "What's this?" he asked without looking up. "Proof that Vanessa bribed a senator 5 years ago to fast-track her defense contracts," Angela said softly. "It's over," Marcus finished for her. Angela's eyes searched his face. "You sure this is the man you want to be?" Marcus's jaw worked, but he didn't answer. He made the call. The next morning, Vanessa awoke to headlines that gutted her soul.
Leaked documents tie Vanessa Steele to political corruption. Federal grand jury subpoena Steele International records. She threw her phone across the room, glass shattering. Malik caught her wrists as she collapsed onto the bed. You can still settle, walk away with something before he takes it all. But her eyes burned with tears and rage. I'd rather lose everything than let him win. Marcus returned to New York weeks later, his empire battered but standing. His board greeted him with wary relief. You broke her, Henry said. Steele International is liquidating assets. She's finished. But Marcus felt no triumph, only emptiness. That night, he walked alone through Central Park. Snow fell gently, muffling the world. For the first time in years, he felt the crushing weight of his own choices. Was this what victory tasted like? Vanessa, meanwhile, signed the final papers relinquishing control of her company. She stared at the documents for a long time before rising. Malik stood in the doorway. Where will you go? Someplace he can't follow, she said. As she left her penthouse for the last time, cameras flashed like gunfire, but she didn't flinch. Weeks later, Marcus received a small, unmarked envelope. Inside was a single photo, Vanessa on a beach somewhere far away, smiling faintly at the camera. On the back, a handwritten note. You won the war, but at what cost? Marcus sat in his office, staring at the note until dawn. For the first time, he wondered if he had truly won anything at all. The city was alive with whispers. Marcus sat alone in his penthouse office, the skyline of Manhattan glittering beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. It was supposed to feel like triumph. He had dismantled Vanessa Steele's empire piece by piece, turned her name into a cautionary tale in boardrooms across the globe. But instead of victory, there was only a gnawing hollowness. He ran a hand over his face, the stubble rough against his palm. Sleep had been a stranger for weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. Not broken, not defeated, but walking away with her head high. Angela entered quietly, holding a tablet. Marcus, there's something you need to see. He glanced up, eyes bloodshot. What now? She placed the tablet in front of him. A video clip played. A grainy recording from a small Caribbean island. Vanessa, dressed in a flowing sundress and oversized sunglasses, laughing with a local fisherman. The camera panned as she handed over a basket of fresh fruit and waved to a group of children. She's been spotted in St. Lucia, Angela said softly. Marcus's jaw tightened. She's building a new life. Angela hesitated. Do you want me to send someone? He shook his head. No, let her be. But as Angela left, Marcus couldn't tear his eyes away from the screen. The image of Vanessa, carefree and radiant, burned into his mind. In St. Lucia, Vanessa wandered through the open-air market, the scent of spices and salt water filling her lungs. She was far from the marble towers and high-stakes deals of New York. Here, no one knew her as Vanessa Steele, the ruthless mogul. She was just Vanessa. Miss Steele? A soft voice called. She turned to see Malik jogging toward her, sweat beading on his brow in the tropical heat. What are you doing here? She asked, surprised. You didn't think I'd let you disappear completely, did you? Malik said with a smile. I needed to make sure you were surviving. Vanessa looked away, focusing on a vendor arranging mangoes. Surviving? That's a generous word for it. You're alive, Malik said simply. That counts for something. Meanwhile, Marcus found himself haunted by memories. He walked through his empty apartment, each room echoing with silence. He thought of the first time he met Vanessa at a charity gala, her laughter like music above the din of clinking glasses. He remembered their nights together, nights filled with fire and fury, passion and betrayal. And now, she was half a world away, beyond his reach. Weeks later, Marcus attended a gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, dressed in a sharp tuxedo. The city's elite swirled around him, champagne flowing freely. But his mind was elsewhere. Marcus King. He turned sharply. Standing across the room was a woman in a black gown, her hair swept into an elegant knot. For a heartbeat, he thought it was Vanessa. But no, the eyes were too soft, the smile too tentative. Still, his chest ached. "You look like you've seen a ghost," the woman said. "Perhaps I have," Marcus replied, offering a tight smile before excusing himself. Back in St. Lucia, Vanessa sat on the beach, the waves lapping at her toes. Malik joined her, handing over a coconut with a straw. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "All of it," she murmured, "or just losing?" "Both." Vanessa watched the horizon, the setting sun painting the sky in streaks of gold and crimson. "I don't regret fighting for what I built, but I regret letting it consume me." She sipped from the coconut. "And him." "Him?" "Marcus," she admitted. "I hate him for what he did, but I hate myself more for still caring." 1 month later, Marcus boarded his jet without informing Angela or the board. Destination: St. Lucia. As the jet soared above the Atlantic, he stared out the window, his reflection staring back with weary, determined eyes. He didn't know what he'd say, didn't even know if she'd see him. But he couldn't stay away any longer. Vanessa was at the market when she felt it, that prickling awareness along her spine. She turned and saw him. Marcus. Tall, immaculate even in the island heat, eyes dark with something she couldn't name. For a moment, neither moved. The world seemed to still. Then she found her voice. "You shouldn't be here." "I had to see you," Marcus said hoarsely. "For what? To gloat? To finish what you started?" "No." He stepped closer. "To say I'm sorry. For everything." Vanessa's throat tightened. She wanted to laugh, to scream, to run. But she stayed rooted as he reached for her hand. "I lost you once," Marcus said softly. "I don't want to lose you again." Vanessa pulled her hand away, her voice trembling. "And why should I believe you?" "Because this time," Marcus whispered, "I'm not here as a rival or an enemy. I'm here as a man who never stopped loving you." The sun set behind them, the market alive with color and sound. Vanessa stared at Marcus, caught between past wounds and fragile hope. This was not the end. It was only the beginning.